Hello everyone! Thank you for joining me for today's video in which I am fulfilling a promise to my viewers that I made before we went on our trip in August of 2024. I said that when we got back from that trip, I would go through everything that we spent on food at Walt Disney World and examine whether or not we saved money by not buying the Disney dining plan. If you haven't seen it already, I would encourage you to go back and watch this video in which I explain what the Disney dining plan is in a little more detail, and I explain why we were choosing not to get it for this trip. Now, if you haven't been watching my channel for very long, or if this is your very first video that you're watching, thank you for being here. But I want to start out by giving you just a little bit of background. This trip to Walt Disney World was 5 nights. It was 4 days in the parks. It was me and my 3 kids, but they're all basically adults. I have one child that's still a teenager, but we're adults for the purposes of pricing. The Disney dining plan at the time that we went to Walt Disney World in August 2024 was basically $94 per person per night of your stay. So it's figured based on the number of nights you're staying at a Walt Disney World resort. You can only get the Disney dining plan if you are staying on site at a Walt Disney World resort hotel. And so it was $94 per night. We were there for 5 nights and there were 4 of us. So 94 times 5 times 4 is $1,880. So I was using that as kind of my guide. If we had bought the Disney dining plan for this trip, it would have cost us $1,880 for food. Hold on, plus tip. The Disney dining plan does not include tip for your servers at table service restaurants or sit-down restaurants. So you've got to keep that in mind. I didn't factor that in, but you just have to remember, especially at the table service restaurants at Walt Disney World, they can be pretty expensive. And so your tip can be, $30, $40 even sometimes, depending on the size of your party and how much you're spending. So just keep that in mind, that tip is not included on table service meals at Walt Disney World when you have the Disney dining plan. We knew that we were going to be having a mix of table service meals and counter service meals or quick service meals. And so I based this on the standard Disney dining plan, which does give you 1 table service meal, 1 quick service meal, and 1 snack per night of your stay for each person. Okay, so that's where I was getting that price from, and it was $94. So $1,880. I knew that if I spent less than that on food, that I had made a good choice by not buying the Disney dining plan. Before I go through all the specific numbers with you, and I've left some space over here today so that I can put all these numbers up here for you so you can see what I'm talking about. Let me invite you to subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed already, I would really encourage you to subscribe. I make travel content on every aspect of the travel experience. I take you along with us on all of our trips and show you exactly where we go and what we do. I give you an abundance of helpful travel tips for the average traveler like me to make your trips better, safer, easier, and more cost-effective. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I would really encourage you to do that. And while you're down there, would you please give me a thumbs up? Thank you. All right, let's go through the trip. Now, this is just the first half of our trip, which was at Walt Disney World. We then did go and spend a day at Kennedy Space Center, which is kind of by itself. That doesn't include it in this. And then the last part of our trip was a cruise on Royal Caribbean's Utopia of the Seas, which there will be a lot more videos coming up from that. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in the cruising part of the trip. Okay, but I'm going to be going through the Walt Disney World portion of the trip. I kept meticulous notes, many, many pages of notes from this trip, and telling you everything that we spent on food. Okay, so the trip started on August 13th. That was a Tuesday. And it involved us flying down to Orlando separately. Me and my 2 younger kids, Ben and Megan, flew from Minneapolis. My son Andrew flew down from Boston. And we met at the Orlando International Airport. Now, I don't know what Andrew did for food before that, but we actually got McDonald's on the way to the airport. But Megan actually paid for it, and I'm not counting that because that wasn't at Disney. The only other food that we bought that day was when we got to our resort, which was Pop Century Resort at Walt Disney World. And we actually walked over to Art of Animation Resort. They're connected by a bridge because the food court at Pop Century Resort was, or still is maybe, under renovation, and it was all like blocked off. You could still mobile order there, but we wanted to be able to actually like see the food and go up to the individual stations and stuff. So we walked over to Art of Animation and we got 4 different things plus desserts, and we ended up paying for the stuff in 4 different transactions. So in the vlog from that night, I say that I don't know how much that meal cost because I bought it in 4 separate transactions. The 4 separate transactions were $23.19, $6.70, $59.15, and $8. For a total of, for our meal for the 4 of us, was $97.04. Now, I'm really sorry. I actually already deleted the video clips I took of our food there. They were pretty substantial sized meals. But again, that's fast food, if you will. I mean, it wasn't really fast food. We had some nice meals. Andrew had meatloaf and mashed potatoes and broccoli. I had shrimp and mashed potatoes and rice. Megan had like stir-fried chicken thing over rice, and I can't remember what Ben got, but if you go back and watch this video, it's right at the very end of it. You can see what exactly we got. So almost $100 for that first meal for 4 of us in the food court. So that gives you kind of an idea of the prices you're going to be paying at Disney. This did also include drinks. We each got a soda. So $97.04. The next day, August 14th, we went to Hollywood Studios. First thing was at the Trolley Car Cafe, which is the Starbucks location at Hollywood Studios. We bought some stuff, and I didn't write down how much it was. Okay, so I don't know how much that was. I want to say it was like around $15. I should also add that almost all of the food that I bought at Walt Disney World was prepaid in a way. Not because I got the Disney dining plan, but because I was paying for all of my food with 2 things. Number 1 was my Chase Disney Visa Rewards Redemption Card. I have a Chase Disney Visa, and I had transferred before every Disney type trip, anything we're doing Disney, I transferred the points from my Chase Disney Visa over to my Chase Disney Visa Rewards Redemption Card, which is a different card. I talked about this in this video, so go back and check that out if you haven't seen that video, because I explained this more detail there. I think I had like $175 to start out with on my Chase Disney Visa Rewards Redemption Card that I was using basically Chase Disney Visa points to pay for our food and some things that we bought, like clothes and stuff that we bought in the stores. I used my Chase Disney Visa Rewards Redemption Card for that, and that is saved on my Disney Experience app in my phone, so I can just use it right from there. And then the other thing was we had Disney gift cards. We had 3 Disney gift cards for $500 each. Now those I could not save in my Disney Experience app, but I could save them in my Google Wallet. So I had those 3 Disney gift cards, $500 each, so $1,500 saved in my Google Wallet. So I had basically about almost $1,700 in cashless form, prepaid already, on my phone, basically. And that's basically what I was using to pay for food the whole time. If I used my actual debit card, I will tell you, I didn't have any cash with me except the cash that I used for tips. I almost never carry cash except when we're going on a trip. I actually calculate out ahead of time how much I'm going to need for tips, and then I get that exact amount out in cash from the bank. So then we had lunch at 50's Primetime Cafe, and this was extra expensive because this meal was the Fantasmic dining package. So in addition to paying for our meal, which you have to order specific things when you have the dining package, you get a main course, you get either an appetizer or a dessert, but not both, and you get a beverage. That's what you get with the dining package. You get to choose which ones you want, but that's all you get. And then you get tickets that you take to Fantasmic that night. You get priority seating at Fantasmic in like the center area of the amphitheater. We were paying for the Fantasmic dining package, and that's why it was a little bit more expensive. And then I added the tip on there too. So that meal was $265. So pretty expensive. I think that might have been our most expensive meal of the trip. Okay, then we weren't going to have a table service restaurant twice in one day. I really don't recommend that. But because it was so hot, I wanted to get us inside because I realized while we were there, can anybody think of one? I can't think of any counter service restaurant at Hollywood Studios where you can eat inside in the air conditioning. I can't think of anything. So let me know if I'm forgetting something, but I decided to pick up another table service dining reservation, and we ate at Mama Melrose's, and it was $162.45, and that includes the tip. Okay, so the total for that day, I will stick up here because I did not add these up ahead of time. So the total for Wednesday, August 14th will be here. Thursday, August 15th, we went to EPCOT. The first thing we spent was... Megan spent, I'm not really counting Megan, but I'm just going to tell you. She spent $6.17 with her own debit card at Connections Cafe, which is the Starbucks location in EPCOT. Okay, she wanted a coffee, but I'm not counting that in our total because that was coming out of her own personal money and not my trip budget. Okay, our first actual expenditure then for food that day was our lunch at San Angel Inn in the Mexico Pavilion. And it totaled, I said it in the video, I think I said $180 with the tip. It was $179.53. Regal Eagle Smokehouse, we spent $35.21. At Caramel Kucha, which is in the Germany Pavilion, you don't have to pay for water at Walt Disney World. Go into any counter service restaurant. They'll give you free water. Okay, and then we spent another $15.40 at Regal Eagle Smokehouse. And then I didn't write them down. Don't know how the guys paid for those. They got fish and chips at the UK fish and chip shop. And they got crepes for us at the France crepe stand in the France Pavilion. And those I did not write down. And I don't actually know how much we spent for those or how they paid for those. You know what? I bet they paid for... No, I know. They paid for them with their magic bands, which means it got charged to the room. And I have that completely separate from my food stuff. So even though we bought food, it was actually on the room charge. And I'll talk about that more when I talk about this one, which I'm going to film later, which is about how much we spent on the whole trip. Friday, August 16th, we didn't go to a park for the day. That was the night that we had tickets to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. The first thing that we spent on food that day was we took the Skyliner from Pop Century over to Caribbean Beach Resort, and we had lunch at Centertown Market, which is their food court there. And we had two charges there. One was $9.56, and the other one was $63.71. So that was lunch that day. The kids bought some treats at Golden Oak Outpost, and that was in Magic Kingdom, and that was $13.61. And we had a little bit of food at Pinocchio Village House, and it was $14.39. We bought some sodas, like some drinks, at a drink cart, and that was $9. And yeah, that's like all we ate that day. So the total, I will again put the total for the day up here. All right, August 17th, which was Saturday and our last full park day, we were at Animal Kingdom. We had lunch at Yak and Yeti, and it was $197.11 with the tip. Dinner was at Sautilli Canteen, and I don't have it written down, but I want to say it was like 60 or 70 some dollars. So my record keeping, I apologize, was not as good as I thought, and I know that's the only other food we bought that day, but I'll make an estimate and I'll put the total for that up there. Because I did not add these up ahead of time, for which I apologize, I'm just going to put them up here after the fact in the editing process. So the total that we spent at Walt Disney World on food is this. Okay. And As I said at the beginning, if we had gotten the Disney dining plan, it would have cost $1,880 because it was 5 nights and there were 4 of us. And the total that we spent was this. And so therefore, the difference was this much. And as you can see, we did have a significant savings, pretty good savings, by not getting the Disney dining plan. Here's some things that I think contributed to this, though, on this particular trip. One thing that I think contributed to us spending less overall on food was limiting our table service meals. I mean, we basically had 4 table service meals and 4 park days. Now, 2 of them were in one day, and one day we didn't have any, but it balanced out. So basically we had 1 table service meal per day, and then we had basically 1 counter service meal per day, and then we had some snacks here and there. So it was basically what you would have done with the Disney dining plan anyway. I really think that because it was so hot, we were eating probably a little less than you would normally. Like, for example, we probably really weren't buying that many snacks. I mean, I think it's possible to get a lot more snacks and treats. 2 of the things that I think contributed to this is, one is that because it was so hot, we didn't want to be outside a lot. We didn't want to do something like buy a Mickey ice cream bar and then walk with it while we're eating, because it would have melted all over your hand within seconds, okay, because it was so hot. The other thing that I think contributed to this is we didn't end up getting any Halloween treats at the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, which was a huge disappointment. Watch my video about that if you haven't seen it already. That's something that we definitely want to focus on next time we go to that party, because we missed out on all the Halloween treats that we wanted to try. Again, really hot, but also very difficult to get in everything you want to do at Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party. So those are some things that I think contributed to it. Another thing I think that helped keep the cost down was we were mainly drinking water. First of all, the boys both had refillable water bottles with them, and they were using those to drink water all day long. Meg and I were just drinking like out of the water fountains. There are water fountains and water refilling stations all over at Walt Disney World and all the parks, so you won't have a problem finding water. And like I said, you can always go into any counter service restaurant and ask for water too, and they'll just give you a big thing of ice water. But even beyond that, at the restaurants, there was only a couple times that we actually ordered like soda. Otherwise, we were mainly drinking water, so that brought the cost down a little bit, and nobody was drinking any alcohol. Those are some things that I think contributed to it, but this kind of should give you a fairly good idea of what it costs for a family of 4, which if your kids are over the age of 9, you're all going to be counted as an adult, for a 4-day, 1 park per day kind of trip at Walt Disney World. That's not what I recommend if going to Walt Disney World is a one-time, once-in-a-lifetime thing for you, if you've been waiting for years and years. I don't recommend trying to do it that quickly because there's so much to see and do and experience. But that just gives you kind of an idea of what you would spend in a day if you're paying out of pocket like we were. So I hope that this video was helpful to you. If you have any more questions about paying for food at Disney, or how much food costs at Disney World, or the Disney dining plan, please leave those in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer any of the questions that you have. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Again, if it was helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of our other upcoming content. Have a great day, everyone, and safe travels.